Week 5 of college football is in the books, and I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend and is enjoying this beautiful day here on this Tuesday. And I want to welcome you into another Stingray show. And today we are actually going to have a lot of discussion about some of the big upsets that happened in college football this past weekend, and talk a little bit about Arkansas, as we're going to have John Neighbors on the show as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Heath and I review the last weekend in college football.
Dogs and Stingray are coming for you! This is Stephen Ray, aka Stingray, coming to you live. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you, like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever! So without further ado, here is the biggest. Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes. Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee! They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium! Are you kidding me? My God Almighty! What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game! What a play! Wow!
Welcome into another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. And I wanted to also jump on here and let you guys know real quick, what would a Stingray Show be without a little bit of weather? So let me go on ahead and pull this over here. And as you can see, we actually have a hurricane over the Caribbean Sea. And it is moving just south of the Cayman Islands as we speak, and it is moving towards the Yucatan Peninsula, and this is now Hurricane Delta. And recently, as of 11:20 a.m. Eastern Time, data from the NOAA Hurricane Hunters aircraft has indicated that Delta has now strengthened into a Category 4 hurricane, with maximum sustained winds now at 130 miles per hour, with gusts up to 150 miles per hour. This is a dangerous hurricane of a Category 4 right now on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It is moving off towards the west-northwest at 16 miles per hour, and it is currently 315 miles east-southeast of Cozumel, Mexico, and it is moving in that direction. Now, I will be doing another video for you guys updating the path of the Hurricane Delta later on this evening, but I just wanted to kind of give you a quick heads up that Hurricane Delta is now a catastrophic major hurricane with winds of 130 with higher gusts upwards of 150. So without further ado, that is all of the weather that I am going to do here. So let me go on ahead and pull up my co-host, Heath Hopkins. And Heath, how's it going, my friend?
Oh, Stephen, it's a terrific Tuesday, right? Great weekend
Absolutely.
of football. Some shockers that we will definitely be talking about. And hey, COVID's losing, football's winning. All fans are happy, right?
Yes, absolutely. And man, I got to tell you what, I'm really excited for this upcoming football, this upcoming weekend.
Well, there's some big games this weekend. I mean, Tennessee, Georgia. I mean, that's the one I've circled. There's always drama in that game. You
Yes.
remember Tennessee was about to go in. Oh gosh, I can't remember how many years ago. The game was in Knoxville, and then there was the fumble, and Georgia returned it. I just remember that girl in the stands
Yes.
doing that. But hobnail boot, dobnail boot. There's always drama in Tennessee, Georgia. Will we get some this week? We'll have to find out.
Yes. And Cody Newman on Facebook says, I'm just going to say Hail State. That was a huge win for Arkansas.
Massive. State fans want to say things like, well, we had 5 turnovers. We had 7 total turnovers. We can't overturn over on downs. We had that. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. The games aren't played on paper. And
Right.
no, you don't get to play them 10 more times. Like, well, if we played them 10 times, we'd beat them. No, it doesn't matter. You're not playing
Right.
them 10 times. You played them once.
Yes.
You had your chance and you lost. Huge props to the Razorbacks.
I agree with that. Well, and you were actually at that game, man. What did you think about it leaving the stadium? I bet you were shocked.
I hate that I got it there a little too late. There was a lot of parents and fans around the Arkansas buses, and they were calling the Hogs. And why wouldn't they? A 20-game SEC losing streak ends. Think about this, Stephen. Mississippi State in week 1 or week 4, depending on how you look at it, with the COVID craziness. But the first week of SEC games, Mississippi State breaks the nation's longest winning streak with LSU, snaps it.
Yes.
And then the very following week, the longest losing streak in SEC was snapped by the same team on both ends. One was
Yep.
the winning streak, one was the losing streak. So welcome to 2020.
That's hard to do, my friend.
Inconsistency. But, anytime you have a new coach, new systems, there's going to be inconsistency. I don't care what football team you're talking about. I mean, look at Saban his first year at Alabama. I think he went 7-5 that year.
Yes.
And had some horrendous losses. I mean, fear the hyphen. Louisiana Monroe beat them.
Yes. I got to be honest with you. Mike Leach is known for doing that.
Yes.
Having big wins and then coming back and good performances afterwards.
The one thing about Leach teams, he's always got a puncher's chance. It doesn't matter if the team's undefeated and has the nation's longest winning streak. He's got a chance. And it doesn't matter if this team hasn't won a game since 2017 in conference play. The other team has a chance. So that's the crazy thing about Leach. There will be some inconsistencies. But going into every game, he has a puncher's chance, and you didn't feel that way under Moorhead or Mullen or Kroom
Right.
or others. Jackie Sherrill, you felt that way back in the 90s. You definitely felt that way. But the 90s, that was a little bit ago, right?
Yes, I agree with that. Well, what is the status of Kylan Hill? Because when he went down in that football game, it looked like they really did not have a backup plan with when he went out.
That's the most important thing is depth in college football. Our guest last week, Hugh Freeze, talked about having 3 deep to compete.
Right.
Mississippi State doesn't have 3 deep, and that was very evident in the game the other night. It's not a knock on Mississippi State. It's not a knock on anything that they're doing. It's just they don't have the depth, and they're running a new system. So when you go to freshman and true freshman running backs, you expect the production to go down from the guy who led the SEC in rushing last year. So depth is a key issue no matter what team you're talking about. And when it comes to the SEC, especially a 10-game SEC schedule that we have here in 2020, depth is the most important thing. If you can't hang with our starters, we can do this or that. That's not necessarily the chance of which you have the luxury of here in 2020. You've got to go with what's best. And if your depth's not there, don't expect a lot of wins, especially in an all-SEC schedule. Anthony sent us a question. Is Mizzou going to win more than one game this year? They look like hot garbage. Is that a Bo Bounds take? Hot garbage? I definitely think that Missouri could go winless. That offense struggled. I think they will win a game. I will say this about Missouri. The longer the season goes, just like with Mike Leach, just like with Lane Kiffin, and all first-year head coaches and systems. As soon as you see it happen on the field, and they start figuring out the system and how to run it correctly, wins will start to follow shortly after that. Missouri's running what we call the weird offense, self-proclaimed by the players there at Mizzou. Yeah, but that game the other night, that was bad. That was bad.
Well, man, we're going to roll the highlights here, but as you can see in a hat, and with it being October and Halloween, I thought what I would do was do something different and do a different look every single week. So that's my new thing for right now for this month, is to do it basically because of Halloween.
Well, hey, did you get a free bowl of soup with that hat? Is that the Rodney Dangerfield line from Caddyshack?
Yes, I did.
No, it looks good, Stephen. It looks good. I'm looking at Todd's reply to Cody saying that COVID will end 3 games early.
Yes.
You know what? I'm done with COVID. I'm not going to touch on it. I'm not going to beat up on Todd or anybody. I'm so sick and tired of COVID. I'm not talking about it. I'm just glad football's here, and I'm going to celebrate as long as we have it. And not that I'm an optimist, but I definitely think that we'll have more football than less football this year.
Yes. And by the way, Tennessee, you were talking about the Tennessee-Missouri game. They did win that game 35-12. And Tennessee has extended its win streak to 8 in a row now. But that will be tested, of course, this weekend at Athens. Man, that's going to be a tough game.
If you look at the games over the last couple of years, it's not like Georgia's been running away with these games.
Right.
Yeah, there's been some blowouts here and there, yeah. But, Tennessee, they had that crazy year with the Dobnell boot.
Yes.
Where, gosh, you thought that things were being turned around up there. I'll say this about that Tennessee defense. It's only getting stronger. That defense is getting more confidence each week, and that defense is legit. That defense is getting stronger and stronger. And if Georgia struggles on offense that we saw earlier this year,
right?
But I will say this about Georgia and their offense. If they have finally figured out the quarterback situation and illness and the depth and all that, that offense for Georgia can roll and roll big. So I can't wait for this weekend. I hope it's not a downer of a game, but I think there's going to be a lot of drama with Georgia and Tennessee like it is almost every year.
I agree with that.
Richard Lockhart put in the Saban versus Saban assistants is being put to the ultimate test this year. Last week to Jimbo, this week to Kiffin, then Kirby, then Pruitt. It's kind of like what we talked about last week. Tiger Woods didn't have a rival for years in golf, and I thought golf was boring because Tiger was winning everything. He was winning all the majors. It's kind of the same thing with Saban. I'm kind of getting tired of watching the games with Saban assistants because I don't think any of them can beat Saban. So I've kind of tuned out when it's a Saban assistant versus a Saban game. But, hey, Saban assistant versus Saban assistant, that's a different story. So I do expect some fun to happen. But do you think it's a shocker that Alabama had all these great defenses and these 2 defensive coordinators are facing off each other as head coaches? That's a storyline. It is. I don't think it'll get enough national play or even regional play this week. But, those are 2 phenomenal defenses, Tennessee and Georgia. It's going to be a fun weekend.
Right. I agree with that. Well, man, are you ready to bring on our guest for today? He is an Arkansas fan, and he is an Arkansas beat writer. So let's go ahead and bring him in here. John.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, John.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you guys? It's great, actually, to have a victory to talk about if you're a Razorback fan. So this was perfect timing.
Good for you. Hey, did you dance in the streets, John?
No, I went streaking in the streets instead. Dancing's overrated, so I decided to just go all out for it. But, no, it was definitely a celebration here in the state of Arkansas, man. it was almost euphoric because it had been so long. And Razorback fans deserve it. There's still 8 games left in the year, but man, it felt good to get that one.
Go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what you do, and introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, so name's John Neighbors. I host the radio show Out of Bounds on 103.7 The Buzz here in the state of Arkansas. It's a statewide show. And I kind of do a podcast on the side, too, called Locked On Razorbacks Podcast. And, I do Periscopes. I just do whatever it takes for content creation purposes, all that fun stuff.
I got you. Well, first off, I have to ask, man, Coach Pittman is known for the yes, sir. How are the Razorback fans getting used to that? Because first, when he was hired, some of them really didn't like that too much.
It was kind of one of those things where Arkansas had been so bad under Chad Morris, and they didn't really care much less about sayings anymore. It was more just about, hey, let's just get somebody who will win. Yes. And when he got in, there were some people that were kind of underwhelmed by the hire, because let's be honest, he was a guy who's never been a head coach before, but he quickly has turned things around to where people are really warming up to him for many different reasons. So if he keeps winning and if he keeps improving and, he keeps hiring great coaches and recruiting really well, he can say, yes, sir. He can say, no, ma'am. He can say whatever he wants, because Razorback fans have just wanted to taste some victory, and they finally have.
Yes.
John, do you have a personal Sam Pittman story? Have you got to meet him, or a story that you've heard about that you really like about him?
Yeah, actually, which, by the way, he's actually coming on my radio show today for an interview at 1:15. So really looking forward to that. Wanted to, give that little self-plug. But I think the story, when he was offensive line coach at Arkansas under Brett Bielema, we had a chance to always kind of interview him throughout the week. And what I always loved about Sam Pittman was that he was, obviously very genuine, just a good old boy, that down to earth. But when he'd come into the press conference room, the coaches would kind of go into different areas, and cameras and all that stuff would go to him. And every time Sam Pittman was there, he'd walk in, he'd sit down in a chair. He wouldn't stand there for the entire time. He'd sit down in a chair and he'd take off his shoes. He'd take off his shoes and just sit there, because he was a guy that was always moving around in games, and he would always just laugh. He's like, I'm sorry, guys, I have to take off my shoes, but I want to be comfortable during this. So that was always something that really stood out to me, because he was just like, hey, what you see is what you get. I'm not trying to be here to impress anybody. Right. I just want to be comfortable and hang out. And so that was always something that really stuck with me, because I've never seen any coach do that.
Can we start the hashtag Shula Sam Pittman?
I don't know if he still does it anymore now that he's head coach. He's usually behind the podium, and with COVID, we haven't been able to actually be in person for any of these press conferences. So I don't know if he still takes off the shoes or not. So we may need to find that out. Maybe I'll ask him that today.
Does he have a strong sock game?
No. He is plain Jane, white socks, probably looks like something from TJ Maxx, and some tennis shoes. He's a very simple guy, no sock game there.
Gotcha.
Well, can you kind of talk about and break down the Mississippi State game for us? What it was like going into it, what you thought, and then your expectations as the game went on.
Going into the game, I made jokes about this, but my birthday was actually on Saturday for the Razorback football game, and when I knew that it was coming up on a Saturday, I'm like, I remember games on my birthday, because I grew up a Razorback fan, and I thought like every time we've won them. And, I look back in history, and in 2015, Arkansas beat Tennessee on the road. In 2009, they beat Texas A&M in Arlington. In 1998, they beat Kentucky in that year. So I looked at them like, since joining the SEC, Arkansas is undefeated on October 3rd. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to pick Arkansas to win, because obviously there's got to be a trend to that. So I was picking them to win, but in the back of my mind, though, I was like, it's probably not likely, just because of that offense that Mississippi State has. But going into the game, and about midway through the third quarter, I started to think, I'm like, this defense is causing problems for Mississippi State. They're not getting the big plays. They're not going downfield like they were against LSU. This is a great game plan by Barry Odom. And I didn't feel good about Arkansas winning. In fact, even with 2 minutes left, I still said something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Arkansas is still going to lose this game. But as the final horn sounded and they ended up winning, it was almost like it didn't seem real because it had been so long. But it was a hard fought game, very physical game, lots of injuries. But finally, for once, Arkansas got the benefit of the doubt in the game, and they ended up being a victor.
And actually, Heath was at that game in the stands, man. So he is a Mississippi State fan. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I can tell you this. I was not expecting that to be a victory because especially Mississippi State's just destroyed Arkansas, I feel like every single year for like the past 4 years. I think the last time Arkansas won was in 2016. Right. Down in Starkville, like Raleigh Williams ran for like 300 yards, it seemed like. But it's always been really good games. But Joe Moorhead actually had the number of Arkansas. He destroyed them every single time. But this time it was Sam Pittman getting the victory. But I mean, it was an ugly game, but it was a good game for Razorback fans for sure.
Hey, John, I've got to ask, late in the fourth quarter, when that punt was muffed, what did you do?
I said yes, like when I was happy, but I still was sitting back. I'm like, something's going to happen. Something's going to go wrong. It doesn't matter. Like, and Arkansas tried. They were in field goal range there for like a bit at the end, but then they had that stupid unsportsmanlike contact penalty.
Yep.
That put them back, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to give them the ball back?" Like, I didn't matter. It didn't matter about the muff punt. It didn't matter about anything. I'm like, until it says 0, and Arkansas's got more points than Mississippi State, I'm not believing it. And sure enough, that ended up happening. So yeah, I was happy, but I was also skeptical and cautiously optimistic.
True or false statement, John? The SEC. Best fans, best coaches, best players, best stadiums, worst officials.
Yes. Like, I didn't know that is that a controversy? Is that other people that believe that? I can't imagine who would disagree with that. Officiating's always been bad in the SEC, which is such a shame. What it reminds me of? It reminds me of like Alabama with their kickers, where they are elite at every single position in every single way. They're just so perfect. But yet they can't get the kicking right, and it doesn't make any sense. The same thing at the SEC. The best fans, best money, most money, best players, best coaches, best of everything, but the officiating is terrible. So I don't understand why that's the case, but it's just part of football. Unfortunately, it's always going to have bad calls and bad officiating, but it's definitely been a funny trend so far this year.
I was shocked at the beginning of the game when Colin Hill, when he got knocked out. I clearly thought that was a fumble. They were showing the replay there at the stadium, and I was there with my kids and my 11-year-old daughter, my 9-year-old son. With everyone socially distanced around us, all agreed, oh, that's a fumble. And then when they made the announcement, I was like, wow. Because Mississippi State's not used to ever getting calls, ever. and so I was just kind of shocked when I saw that. What were your thoughts at the beginning? Did you think, oh, this is our night, they're not going to help us, they're going to screw us? What was your thoughts?
At the time when it happened, I said, well, it's just the way it's going to be this game. But then once Arkansas got the pick six, like a couple plays later, I said, right. You know what? Great call, SEC officials. That was a great call. That was the right call. So, sometimes in those cases, like especially early in the games, like it's frustrating. But, when you have a play like they had with the pick six, you kind of forget about it and don't really care as much. But if that would have happened late in the game or something like that, then it would have been a much bigger controversy. Because I'll tell you this, Mississippi State and Arkansas have that similarity where, they know they're not Bama, they're not Auburn, they're not Florida, they're not Georgia. They're not going to get the benefit of the calls really in any game. But I guess in this game, somebody had to get the benefit of a call or two. But, and luckily that play actually benefited Arkansas in the long run.
What about Felipe Franks? I thought about this on the drive home the other night. Felipe Franks came in with the University of Florida, and Dan Mullins returned to Starkville and gets the win. And then he gets injured last year and is out. He ends up at Arkansas up on the hill and comes back to Starkville. He's played 2 games in Stark Vegas and left with 2 wins in close games. No one's talking about that.
That's a good point. And that was something that actually when the postgame show was happening on our radio station here in Arkansas, that was something that was brought up too, where it's you look at Felipe Franks and in his game in there, and I've said this before because when he came in at Arkansas, I'm like, guys, people were wondering what he would be like. I'm like, he's not going to be a great quarterback. He's not going to throw for 30 touchdowns and 3,000 yards. It's not going to happen. But what he has to be is just good enough. Just good enough. He doesn't have to. He just don't throw a bunch of picks. Don't turn the ball over. Don't make bad decisions. and they'll be fine. And luckily, he did that against Mississippi State. He didn't throw any picks. He completed over 200 yards. He had some good passes, some good play calling. So that's what they need him to do. They don't need him to be amazing. They just need him to be good enough.
Do you think Felipe Franks will be back next year?
Dude, that's been something that everyone's been asking about because of that waiver rule.
Right.
I don't know. Like, if he wants to come back, I'm sure that they'll talk about it. But at the same time, if you're Sam Pittman and Kendall Briles, it's like, yeah, but these guys that have been, waiting in the ranks with KJ Jefferson and Malik Hornsby, what do we do about that? So it makes me think that if they allow him to stay, if they want him to stay and he ends up staying, that shows that they don't really have confidence in the guys that they have coming up. But if he moves on and all of that, then I think Arkansas will still be in some good hands because they have some talented young quarterbacks behind him. But yeah, I would be honestly shocked if he ended up staying another year.
What about KJ Jefferson? The only reason I bring him up is I'm a local announcer here with high school sports, high school football, and I got to see KJ's games several times, and I was always impressed with him. Is KJ next in line?
Yeah, he is as of right now. In fact, last year under the absolute Chad Morris debacle, which we don't have to want to revisit that, but he had Chad Morris in 2 seasons had 8 starting quarterbacks, 8 in 2 seasons.
Wow.
And one of them was KJ Jefferson. But people were wondering, like, when Nick Starkel and Ben Hicks were playing so god-awful, they were like, why are you not playing this kid? Well, they finally did because of the redshirt rule in the final 4 games of the season. And, what he was able to do is, like, you could see he had great athleticism, but he was a true freshman. And he was going up against SEC opponents. And he had an idiot for a head coach and a terrible coaching staff around him. So I think that he's going to be one of those guys that's why they try to get him involved into some packages against Mississippi State, because they want to see and show like what he's capable of. He's a big-bodied guy. And honestly, when Felipe Franks leaves, I think he's going to be the next guy that steps into that role. Unless, I'll never say never, because we know how this transfer portal thing hits. And who knows, maybe if there's some big-time grad transfer quarterback that's calling up Kendall Briles and Sam Pittman being like, hey, kind of want to come to y'all and play with you. I mean, they're not going to say no either. So, but assuming that none of that happens, KJ Jefferson's going to be the guy.
This next question is going to make things a little dramatic for you. Chad Morris, when he left, were you just absolutely shocked that he gets a job at Auburn right off the bat?
No, because you want to hear my conspiracy theory on everything? I
would love to hear it.
Okay, here's my conspiracy theory. So when Chad Morris was hired, it was during a time where Arkansas didn't have an athletic director. They had just fired Jeff Long, and they had just fired Brett Bielema, and you had a bunch of board of trustee guys trying to put together something to hire a coach. It was a disaster from the get-go. They wanted Gus Malzahn so bad. They kept offering him all this money, but he said, here's my theory, and here's what I think happened. Gus said, you know what? I'm not going to come. I'm not going to leave Auburn. But I got a guy that's a good friend of mine who's really good and is the next up-and-coming coach. He's the next best thing next to me. His name's Chad Morris. He's over there at SMU. He's a guru. He's amazing. And the board of trustees being like, well, if Gus Malzahn says he's good, well, let's go get him. And so Gus Malzahn knew, though, that dude was not head coaching material. So Gus pulled the old bait and switch approach with Arkansas and the board of trustees, because they didn't have an athletic director, to hire Chad Morris. So that way in the SEC West to be another coach he wouldn't have to worry about. And Gus was basically telling Chad, hey, don't work out. Don't worry. I'll get you a spot on my roster. I'll get you a spot with my staff if it doesn't work out. That's my conspiracy theory. It was a sabotage job by Gus Malzahn, and it ended up working. And now you see him at Auburn. I'm not surprised by it because they were such good friends, and Gus likes hiring coaches that he's comfortable with. But looking in the first 2 games of the year with Auburn's offense, I'm laughing pretty hard. I'm hoping that it fails miserably, and I think it will, because Chad Morris, I'm sorry, he's not a good offensive coordinator. He's not a good coach in general. He benefited from having elite talent at Clemson around him to work with, and I think it's going to fail miserably at Auburn.
Do you think that Gus wants other high school coaches around him?
Is it far around him, like on his staff, you mean?
Yes.
That's actually a good question. I've never thought of that. I think so, because it's what he's comfortable with. Right. I think he's comfortable with that high school feel and the way things go and how it all works out. So, because every coach wants to be comfortable, But great coaches, I think, go and hire guys that aren't their buddies or they don't like work well with. And that's honestly, I know I'm kind of, pulling it back to Sam Pittman, but that's what I think made Sam Pittman and why he's having success early is he's never been a head coach, but he went out and got coaches. Like he didn't even know who Kendall Briles was as far as like, he never worked with him.
Right.
Like, he never really talked to him, but he saw this guy that was doing really well at different stops. And Sam was like, hey man, I'd like you to come run this offense. And he knew better. Like he's hiring coaches that are good at what they do instead of coaches that he's buddies with or that he feels comfortable with. So I think Malzahn has had a problem with that, as we all have seen, especially when it comes to offensively. But, as we all know with Gus, though, he's always going to do just enough to keep his job. So I expect, though, especially if Auburn does not fare well against Arkansas this weekend, which can't wait for that game, that if the offense struggles again, Gus Malzahn's going to pull the old, I'm taking back over play calling duties, like he always does. So, but yeah, that's a long answer, but yeah, essentially, I just want Chad Morris and Auburn to fail, just like many Razorback fans, because that guy didn't even issue a statement after he was fired.
Oh,
really? No, he didn't issue he didn't say, fans, we appreciate all the support. Sorry we didn't get it done. We wanted it to be nothing. He didn't say a word. And so that's another reason why. I wouldn't have near a problem with them if it wasn't for stuff like that. Because I'm like, dude, coaches, you tried, but you just weren't the guy for the job. But the fact that you didn't even have the audacity to thank the fans who were spending so much money on season tickets to see that debacle, you couldn't even put on Twitter a little note or anything like that. Yeah, that was really disappointing to see, and that's why most Razorback fans are saying, you know what, screw Chad Morris. We don't care. We want that guy to fail miserably. He wasn't a classy guy. His family didn't even move to Fayetteville. Another crazy controversy. They stayed in Texas. It was just a very weird thing that, everybody wants to forget about. But it's a nice breath of fresh air having someone different from Sam Pittman.
I'm going to bring up a question from the grave. So, Halloween, right?
Right.
The whole debacle with Houston Nutt and Gus Malzahn,
yeah.
What do you think actually happened with all that craziness back then?
Man, this is my favorite topic because I was actually in Fayetteville and I was actually dating Houston Nutt's daughter when this was all going down, if you could believe it.
Even better.
Yeah, but my theory behind it is that, there's no theory. I think it's pretty much truth at this point. But Houston Nutt had back-to-back losing seasons. First coach ever in Arkansas history to lose back-to-back seasons, have losing seasons back-to-back and keep his job. Only coach ever to do that. And during that time, there was this kid named Mitch Mustaine, who was the number one player in all the country.
Remember
in Springdale, Arkansas, along with Damian Williams, who was a 4-star wide receiver, and all these players, and Gus Malzahn was the head coach. And he is running this new offense called the hurry up, no huddle spread offense. And it was like that back then, this was in 2005, it was blowing people's minds. So the offense was terrible under Nutt. So Frank Broyles, the AD at the time, went to Nutt and says, you have to hire this coach as offensive coordinator, and you have to get these kids or you're gone. You can't allow this to happen. And so it was a forced marriage that was just doomed from the start. And after time, they kept having this struggle between, who's playing, who's not playing, who's calling plays, how the offense is set up. They never wanted Malzahn on the coaching staff, and all the other coaches treated him badly, but also Gus didn't handle it really well either. It was a forced marriage that was never going to work out, and you saw the end result from it.
Oh, you brought it up. I'm going to ask the same question, but slip in a different topic. You've got to tell us your favorite Houston Nutt story, because I got a feeling you've got more stories with Houston Nutt since you were around his family more when you dated his daughter.
Well, I was only just to be honest, I went to homecoming with her, and it was just kind of like a short span thing. I was only around Coach Nutt twice personally, but he was he was a very energetic guy, and he always had a lot of just weird comments, man, just stuff that would bother people. For instance, I think it's the most famous thing he's known for in Arkansas. In that 2005 season, they had that losing season. They were a bad team. And this was when people were criticizing Nutt as an offensive coordinator. Because he called his own plays, and this was before the Gus thing. And everyone was like, dude, you're terrible. You got to fix this. They kept criticizing him. And after they beat Mississippi State that year, which Mississippi State actually at the time they were really bad. That was the Sylvester Croom days. They were not a good, they were not a good football team. So it wasn't like this big victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. But anyways, after in the post game show on the radio, like Houston Nutt, it makes it all about him, where he gets on there and Chuck Barrett was the guy interviewing him, who's the voice of the Razorbacks now. And he was asking him about that touchdown play he had late in the game. He's like, Coach, what was that? And Coach Nutt said, that was a called play. And I called it, Chuck. And it was basically saying, all you people that were making fun of me and criticizing me, that was mine. Now I'm the one that called that play. And then they're like, okay, Coach, well, it's good win and all that. And before he leaves, he goes, hey, Chuck, I made some good calls today, brother. I made some good calls. And so that was the thing where everyone was like, dude, that's the first thing you think of is how you want to tell everybody that I was the one that called that play after beating a Mississippi State team that essentially had Sylvester Croom going to get fired at the end of the year. Nah. So he was just a guy that was, I don't care for Coach Nutt. I know a lot of Arkansans do. A lot of them don't. But I think that his own personal demise and his own personal selfishness and ego is what kept Arkansas from winning. Do you remember Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis?
Yeah.
Remember those guys? They went 500 in the SEC with those three players. 500 in the SEC during a time before the time the SEC went on this long run where Nick Saban wasn't in the conference.
Right.
Tommy Tuberville was at Auburn. You had at Ole Miss, you had Ed Orgeron during that time, which we all know that didn't work out. You had at South Carolina, it was still like the Lou Holtz beginning of Steve Spurrier days. My point is that he was not to the level it was now. And he went 500 with those dudes. It was just really disappointing, and they really underwhelmed about all that. Like I said, I could talk about Houston Nutt all day long, but I know we don't have time to. So,
what do you think the ceiling is for this team now that they've got a little bit of momentum going back to Sam Pittman in Arkansas?
I think, I said 3-7 would be, that was my overly optimistic pick.
Right.
Season started 2-8, probably more realistic. But I think 3-7 is legitimate because Arkansas has the toughest schedule of any team in the SEC. I don't think you can deny that fact. But, Missouri's not a good team. Arkansas plays them this year. Texas A&M looks pretty pedestrian.
Yes.
Arkansas plays them this year. Ole Miss, I know they're scoring a lot of points, but their defense is atrocious. So, that could be a victory. LSU did not look good against Mississippi State. So who knows what that game's going to hold, especially between these two opponents. So, I think that it's very possible that Arkansas could find a way to win 3 games this year. I mean, that's not going to set the world on fire, but compared to where they've been, that's a huge, huge step in the right direction in Sam Pittman's first year.
And it's just a shame that they don't have Vandy on the schedule this year.
Yeah, I know. It's like Arkansas already had a tough schedule, and then when they were doing the 10-game thing, they're like, oh, okay, Arkansas, I know you're already playing in the SEC West, and you're playing Tennessee and Missouri, so let's just give you Georgia and Florida. I mean, why not? I mean, you're not going to win anyway, so why not? Yeah, it was a brutal schedule, but, never know. Maybe there's an upset in there somewhere. Maybe Arkansas puts it all together for one game. Who knows? But I'm just glad we're playing football when it looked like we weren't going to. I'm just glad it's here and glad it's working.
Hey, who knows? Felipe Franks may go down to the swamp and beat his old team. You never know.
I kind of know he won't, but but hey, listen, we can be hopeful, right? They can be hopeful. I mean, as long as if they can just win one more game, just go 2-8. I think that most Razorback fans will be like, all right, we got out of the hole. We're climbing out. We're taking steps. So let's get this thing rolling the right way. So I think they just get one more win. Most Razorback fans will at least be okay with the rest of the year.
John, you may not know the answer to this at all. I sure don't. But I remember when Felipe Franks was at Florida, Dan Mullen talked about the maturity issue of Felipe. He says, well, he still needs to grow up. He still needs to realize the game in game situations, he can't be doing this and showboating a little bit too much after touchdowns. Have you seen any development there with Felipe Franks? And do you think that could be an issue going back to Florida of him just losing his mind before the game even starts?
No, I'm telling you right now, just in 2 games, that maturity issue has not been an issue as far as in the way it was at Florida, because he even talked about it, where because he went through that injury, and he said the injury really woke him up and
Wow.
really said, you know what, I may not have this forever. I may not be able to be this forever, and this is my last shot to make this work, and I have to do it the right way. And so I think that, because I've seen him throw touchdown passes and he celebrates with his teammates. And, I've seen him make some bad mistakes and bad throws, but, he goes right back to the coaches and, he doesn't freak out or anything. So his maturity has come a long way. And that's why it's like, if he can just continue that and even, because he's going to make mistakes, this offensive line's not good enough to, keep him protected all the time. So I'm sure there's going to be frustrations, but so far this year, especially, I've been impressed by him as far as the maturity level goes, because you haven't seen any issues, any acting out, anything like that.
Good.
Do you honestly feel like that Sam Pittman is the coach to possibly get Arkansas back into a contention for the SEC West?
Man, it's just Arkansas's been so far from that, it's really hard to tell. But
Right.
Here's what I think. And I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. 2 weeks before Sam Pittman was hired as head coach, I tweeted out, I want Sam Pittman as the head coach. And the reason why is because Arkansas needs a guy that, one, loves Arkansas, which he does. He loves it here. He's always loved it here. He grew up close by in Oklahoma. Like, he knows the state, knows the area. But they needed somebody who players love playing for and coaches love coaching with. And there is not a single player or coach in this entire college football industry that'll say anything negative about Sam Pittman. Like, everyone loves the guy. And when he hired, I was skeptical, but when he hired this staff, when he got Barry Odom, when he got Kendall Briles, when he got Coach LeBlanc from Kentucky, when he got some of these other guys, Brad Davis from Missouri, like guys with SEC experience, I was like, if he can just continue to do that, if Barry Odom does really well, he's going to get a head coaching job. So It's like, when he leaves, who are you going to replace him with? And if you can continue to just get these quality assistant coaches and just manage, if you're Sam Pittman, just manage them, let them coach. You just manage them and just continue to hire great guys and really do a good job in recruiting, which they're doing a really good job by Arkansas standards. I don't see any reason why they can't be competitive in this conference. And especially, like, is Arkansas going to play, like, compete with Bama? Probably not.
Right.
For LSU, maybe sometimes. But can they be better than Mike Leach at Mississippi State and Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss? Maybe. Can they be better than Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M? I think so.
Yes.
Like, can they be just that team that makes it to a bowl game every year, has a year where they go 6-6, but then has a year where they go 9-3, 10-2. Like, can they be that under Sam Pittman? Absolutely. I see no reason why. But again, this is a brutal division, so somebody's got to finish last. Somebody's got to finish last in this division, and just people are hopeful that Sam Pittman and Arkansas won't be that team very often.
Right.
Well, this will be my last question for you, John, and it's a personal one.
Okay.
Do you cry during the movie Greater?
No, not anymore. I did it when I first saw it. I saw it and actually went to the world premiere of it in Fayetteville. I got an invitation, which isn't a big deal. But I got to go and watch it there. And because it was a story that I was very familiar with, obviously. And
right,
see it portrayed on the big screen and just all of that. It was really good. And honestly, I wasn't expecting much out of that movie because I'm like, man, it's kind of, not a huge budget, doesn't have a lot of, could this end up being like one of those cheesy, like church movies that people like would put together about football teams? And I was pleasantly surprised. Like, it was actually a really good movie and one that was a good story and told it very well. And and it hit me in my feels. It definitely did, because it was such a great story and continues to be such a great story. And it's so cool that Arkansas and in many cases, like, Arkansas has two major college football awards named after people who dealt with Arkansas. One is the Burlsworth Award,
right,
because of the walk-on, and the other one's the Broyles Award, which is for the great assistant coach because of Frank Broyles. So it's just really cool to have that memory and that award continue on, and it's a great story. So yeah, I cried at it at first, but second time, third time around, I maybe got a little misty, but nothing too crazy.
Man, thank you so much for joining us. And is there anything else that you would like to plug on your Twitter account or anything that's coming up so people can follow you?
Yeah, I mean, my Twitter handle is Buzz John Neighbors. It's Nabors. And if you want to hear me interview Sam Pittman today, just go to 1037thebuzz.com and listen live at 1:15 Central Time. We'll be talking with the head hog about being a victor, and really excited about that. So anything for Arkansas, I have a good time on my social media. I don't take myself too seriously, so it's always fun. But I appreciate you guys having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, man. And hopefully we can have you on again. And real quick, can we get you to do the Woo Pig Suey?
I don't know if I can do. You can't do the full-fledged Woo Pig Suey because when you do it by yourself, it's not as cool. But
Right.
how I usually do it is I can give you just a Woo Pig, because I like saying that, kind of like Roll Tide, Woo Pig, and Hogs by 90 is also my thing too. So I'll give you that. But
Okay.
yeah, if there was 2 or 3 more people here, we totally do it. But calling the Hogs by yourself, it's not a good look. It's a group effort.
Thank you, bud. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Y'all take it easy.
Y'all too.
God.
Well, man, what'd you think about that?
John's a character. I think I will tune in at 1:15 today with his interview with Sam Pittman.
Yes.
I think John is right on just about everything he said about Arkansas. I think Sam Pittman is changing things there. The big buzzword that you hear is he's changing the culture. He's changing the culture. I think he's just getting folks to believe. And I believe Sam Pittman is definitely that kind of guy that people want to play for. And he was absolutely right. I've never heard anyone say anything negative about Sam Pittman. Right. So I think Arkansas is on the up and up. How long will it take them to turn this thing around? Don't know. Right. 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Does he get a 4th? I don't know. Will he have it turned around in 2? Don't know. But Sam Pittman, hey, if he can get a couple of recruiting classes to come up on the hill, as Razorback fans so proudly call Fayetteville, if he can get them to come up on the hill, there could be something happening. But it's always hard to get recruits up there in Fayetteville.
I want to play something for you real quick. Now, I got the okay from the Twitter account from the football team up there. So I'm going to play this for you, and I want you to get your reaction about it.
As Stephen pulls that up, I see a question from Cody Newman. Do I think that Garrett Schrader will play this year under center or wideout? I think he's stuck at wideout. I don't think you're going to see him under center unless maybe it's a trick play. Leach is very big on trick plays, but I definitely think you'll see Schrader wind up in the slot all season long. I think you'll only see more and more as the season progresses. Do I think he could line up in the backfield on a trick play or something? Absolutely. Do I think he can line up at quarterback? Sure. But I think it would be a gimmick play, a trick play, if you do see Schrader under center or behind center. I think that's just setting up something for someone to think about, or a trick play. Give something for the team to think about next week, putting Schrader back there. But no, I think Schrader's going to be in the slot. I think he's only going to improve. Steven, have you figured out our technical difficulties yet? Cody, talk about redshirt. There are no red shirts this year. Everyone gets a free pass. So you can look at it as the entire team is being redshirted this year. There will be no red shirts to worry about. The NCAA is giving a pass to everybody. So if you were a redshirt freshman last year and you play as a freshman this year, well, you'll be playing as a freshman in 2021 as well. If you're a graduate transfer and only had 1 year to play, kind of like Felipe Franks or KJ Costello, technically you could come back and play again next year in 2021 if you choose to. So there's going to be a lot of interesting things next year, and I expect the transfer portal to blow up next season. I think there'll be a lot of action in the transfer portal next season. Where do I see Mac Jones by the end of the year? Mac Jones can spin it. Mac Jones is doing excellent. Mac Jones has done everything. I don't want to say perfect, but man, he's so close to it. Mac Jones is doing some amazing things. So if the Heisman was this weekend, yeah, I think he'd be in New York. Would he win it? Probably not. But I think his resume is only going to get stronger. I mean, you got to remember, this is a 10-game schedule, all SEC teams, and Bama's going to play 10 SEC teams this year. This is considered the strongest schedule ever. So if Mac Jones keeps doing what he's doing, yeah, I was so highly impressed with him on Saturday. You can't use enough adjectives or words to describe how awesome he was. I mean, he was throwing some beautiful passes, especially that one pass to Waddle that was, well, gosh, what was it, 87 yards? I mean, hit him in stride, and that was just a beautiful pass. But Mac Jones is there to go. Steven, you figure out our problems?
I'm working on it, dude. Still, it's like you said, man, it's a work in progress.
I also sent you a link to the famous Houston Nut call,
Right.
if you want to pull that up and share that later on in the show. Cody Newman, that is convenient that the red shirts are around this year. Richard Lockhart, where do you see? Oh, I've already answered that one with Richard. Yeah,
Let me see if this will work now.
Go for it.
Oh, come on.
Whoever we had on the plane is all we need. Yeah. That's all we need. Your coaching staff did one hell of a job. Now, the next thing I want to say to you is this. This is just the beginning. Listen. 24-hour rule. We're going to be back in Sunday. We got to get some treatment now. To say I'm proud of you guys, understand. You do everything that we've asked you to do since we've been here. Everything. Do we believe?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, baby. Good win. Turn that damn juke on.
Celebrate like hell. But look, I want to give this man the game ball, his first win ever.
Steven.
Did the audio work?
Yeah, the audio worked fine.
Okay.
The audio worked fine. No video. As a matter of fact, my video still has John up. So, but no, I'm so impressed with what Sam Pittman has done. No one gave him a chance. The guys from SEC Shorts, I love the guys at SEC Shorts. They kind of poked fun at Sam Pittman a little bit and said, they made a terrible mistake and this and that. Give the man a shot. Give the man a chance. National media said Ed Orgeron was the biggest mistake when LSU hired him. Coach O had the last laugh last year, and he laughed at everyone. He laughed at you. He laughed at me. He laughed at every team. He laughed at every writer, and he laughed all the way to the bank catching those bonus checks. I don't understand why so many people want to bring hate and just they want to put you in a box. They want you to stay in that box and fit in that box, and they don't want you to question why you're there. And I never understand that. College football and anybody in the way of life and your walk of life, you don't have to be put into a box. You can do what you want.
Absolutely. Well, let's try this audio one more time, okay?
All right. Hey, is there any video to it?
Yes, there is.
There ain't no, we're going to go out and recruit. We're going to go do this. Whoever we had on the plane is all we need. Yeah, that's all we need. Your coaching staff did one hell of a job. Now, the next thing I want to say to you is this. This is just the beginning. Listen. 24-hour rule. We're going to be back in Sunday. We got to get some treatment now. To say I'm proud of you guys, understatement. You do everything that we've asked you to do since we've been here. Everything. Do we believe?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, baby. Good win. Turn that damn juice.
Celebrate like hell. But look, I want to give this man, the game ball, his first win.
So, of course, that was the Arkansas big victory there in Starkville.
You know, I hope the Hogs, they say the 24-hour rule. Those guys, I don't know if they're having to do classes online up in Fayetteville or not. I hope not. I hope everyone pats them on the back, tells them what a great job they did this past week. That,
right?
You know, I've seen teams like that. I've been part of teams like that where they've been losing for a long time. And when you get a win, it changes your outlook on life. So yes. Props to the Razorbacks. The SEC West is only stronger with stronger teams. I hope the Razorbacks are back sooner rather than later.
I agree with that. And give me just a second. Let me turn that off. Let me. And man, I got to tell you, if you're a Mississippi State fan, let's go ahead and talk about this for just a few more seconds. Are you concerned about their turnover issues?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're concerned with it. They had what, 4 or 5 turnovers, 4 turnovers, and Baton Rouge.
Yes.
And then you know, and you had 5, AK, or some would say 7 against Arkansas if you count the turnover on downs.
Yes.
You know, that's a lot of turnovers. You know, I heard something. I don't know. I didn't research it to see if it's true or not. But someone said that Costello graded out a 43%. Although he threw for 350 whatever yards the other night, he still graded out and made more completions in the Arkansas game than he did against LSU. He still graded out at 43% of hitting the right receiver and making the right read.
Right.
That's concerning. I mean, but again, do I think KJ Costello is a bad quarterback? No, he's a new quarterback in a new system in a new university. You know, I mean, he's still asking the directions where things are. So, am I concerned about it? Yes. Do I think it's time to hit the panic button? No. Just like Lane Kiffin's having problems of getting things together with his offense there in Oxford, just like, you know, the weird offense there in Mizzou at the zoo. You know, the Tigers are having problems with that. Sam Pittman, Felipe Franks, they're having problems with their offense. So anytime you have a new coach, that is the norm. You're going to have problems figuring things out. That's just part of it.
And speaking of Lane Kiffin, let's move on to their big game with Kentucky. And actually, they won this game in overtime because of a missed extra point by the Kentucky Wildcats. Dude, what was your thoughts on that game? Because that game was quite interesting for a while.
I predicted Ole Miss to win that game. I did not predict Ole Miss to win that game in overtime over a missed extra point.
Right.
I didn't see that happen. I thought it would be a close game. I thought Ole Miss would make a play toward the end, one more play than Kentucky, and that's exactly what happened. But you know, Kentucky is not as good as what we thought, and I kind of saw that in the first week with Auburn. I've been a big believer in Stoops, but that Kentucky team has a lot of quit in it. They quit after they got the bad call right before halftime against Auburn. And then this past week, they fought to the bitter end, but it was just kind of like they were just anticipating things to fall apart.
And unfortunately, we lost Heath Hopkins for some odd reason, man. I don't know what the internet issue is, but we're going to get all of this worked out. I do apologize. Let me see if I can get Heath back. So once again, we are a work in progress, and Heath, what happened, my friend?
have no idea what happened, brother. I got kicked out of the stream. I thought you fired me on the spot. I don't know.
No, dude, we're having so many darn issues today, but hey, we are going to get it all worked out. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this or not, but let me pop this up here.
Oh, my wife, Julie. There's a reason why I married her. No, my wife picked out the shirt today. She kept telling me I was fading out. I don't need to wear pastel colors. I was getting faded out. So and shout out to my wife for her. She also ordered me this lovely lamp. See, I'm in the dark now. So she did a lot of she's done a lot. She's enjoying the show. I've missed television and live TV, and although we're not doing television, this is more of a vlog, a video podcast. But I've missed live TV, so she's happy that I'm getting back to doing what I've thoroughly enjoy. But yeah, I might have to censor her comments.
Well, dude, what about the Big 12? I mean, they looked horrible once again.
The little 12.
Yes.
The not important 12. The who cares 12.
Yes.
You're a joke 12.
Yeah.
Gosh, TCU in Texas, we've talked about that. Man, I just can't. It's almost unwatchable. It is unwatchable. Well, yeah. I'll say this: if you're tuning in for the upsets, I mean Oklahoma. I mean, what's going on there? I mean, K-State's a good story, I guess.
Yes.
Oklahoma State. Who doesn't like Gundy?
I know.
Except maybe his players who don't like his T-shirts that he wears.
Right.
When he goes to the lake with his family on July 4th. I don't know if people remember that from the summer. But, I've always wished that someone could do it, and Oklahoma State is that team that, gosh, if we got all of our money together and threw it at this problem, could we win a national championship? And they've gotten so close a couple of times, and
right.
It never happened. Is 2020 the year that, and T. Boone Pickens, who's given, gosh, millions, if not billions, to that university. He's just passed away. Is this the year that they make it happen? I mean, was there one
right.
last gift from T. Boone that's going to get them over the hump this year? So I will start watching Oklahoma State. I'll probably keep an eye on K-State. But as far as the rest of the Big 12, I'm not watching any of those games.
Right. By the way, this weekend is the Red River rivalry between Texas and OU. That's going to be an interesting game because as we're watching here, Oklahoma has now lost 2 in a row after winning their first game. So, I mean, the loss by Texas and Oklahoma last week both take a little oomph out of that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the hippie Olympics. The Red River shootout's like the hippie Olympics.
Yes.
No one wins because they're all losers.
Right.
So I expect the fans to really enjoy that game. There might be something crazy in that game, but I'm not watching it. And that's crazy to say in 2020. But I have no interest in watching the Red River shootout this year. I just do not care at all.
And then, of course, you've got to also watch. We're talking about Oklahoma State and we're talking about Kansas State. You also need to watch out for this Iowa State team because they're pretty good, too, with Brock Purdy as their quarterback.
I haven't watched any of Iowa State yet, but I'm looking forward to watching Iowa State. I guess I can put them on my to-do list now.
Right.
I don't know what to expect from them. I haven't seen them. Tell me something about them, Stephen.
They actually knocked off Oklahoma and this past weekend, and it was the first loss for Oklahoma. Let me pop this up for you. It was the first loss in Ames, Iowa for Oklahoma since 1960.
Wow. I'm a little bit of a history buff. Gosh, who was president before JFK? Because JFK's not elected yet, I don't believe. So I don't even know who the U.S. president was in 1960.
Yes.
Maybe Eisenhower? I don't know. But gosh, 1960. That is a long time, Stephen.
And OU is now 0-2 in conference since the first time since 1990.
Wow. 1990, I believe Schellenberger had returned to Oklahoma during that time. I think John Blake was on that staff, or maybe that was a John Blake team. I can't remember.
Right.
It might have been Schellenberger or Blake, but yeah, that's a long time ago. At both those teams, Schellenberger and Blake, they were both terrible teams.
Right. Well, what else?
Let's see, Cody Newman. Cody Newman put up a comment. Oklahoma has never been of tornadoes or cyclones. So, no, I can't tell you much about Boomer Sooner.
Yes.
But obviously it's a down year, and you can kiss the playoffs goodbye there in Norman. So, sayonara.
And maybe for Texas, too, if they lose again.
Yeah, I think Texas is on the outside looking in. I think Texas could win every game here on out. I still think they're on the outside looking in. I don't think there's anything that Texas can really do to get back into it. I mean, a Big 12 champion, kind of like the Pac-10 champion or a Pac-12 or 8 or 14 or whatever the Pac's calling themselves these days. But, the Pac champion has been irrelevant the past couple of years, and I would say the same thing with the Big 12 this year. It's just not going to be impressive unless you're Oklahoma State.
Yes.
And maybe Iowa State.
And as of course you see here, we're rolling the highlights of the Texas loss to TCU, and TCU has now beaten has now beaten the Longhorns of Texas 6 of the last 7. So Gary Patterson's had their number as of late.
Man, the folks in Fort Worth have got to be tickled. I know TCU is a private school, a very upscale private school, but for TCU to do that to the state university of the Lone Star State, heaven forbid if these two schools were in the SEC, TCU would be looked into for recruiting violations. They're not going to let you get that far ahead of them.
Right.
But, massive props to the Horned Frogs. Massive props.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, dude, I actually thought Baylor could be pretty good this year, and then they got beat by West Virginia.
Yeah, I didn't put much stock into Baylor. Again, new system, new things coming in, new coach. If they made a run, I wouldn't have been too shocked. But when's the last time a coach came in year one and just dominated? There's Terry Bowden at Auburn, but that also cost Terry Bowden his job. I remember Terry Bowden was on ABC halftime show with John Saunders, and his brother was there at Clemson, and they had a big win that day. And he said, "Do you have any advice for your brother?" He goes, "Yeah, don't go 11-0 in your first season." And so, but other than Terry Bowden at Auburn, I don't know of any coach that comes in and just dominates from day one and makes it happen. So I didn't have much to expect out of Baylor this year.
Well, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
I just thought of something. Larry Coker down at Miami, I believe he won the national championship in his first year there, but that really wasn't his team, and we saw how that turned out as well. But no, I want to thank John for coming on today.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that interview. It's here less than an hour. I cannot remember the station, but I'm sure we can probably post it in comments here after we sign off. But John Neighbors, our guest today, talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks and Sam Pittman. And, it's kind of a feel-good story for the week in the SEC is, no one saw that coming. No one saw the Razorbacks come in and turn things around in game 2 of the Sam Pittman area. I got a feeling there's fans in the SEC, East and West, that probably still couldn't tell you Sam Pittman's name if they had multiple choice. If you ask who's the head coach of Arkansas, that guy that says yes, sir. That's probably what all they would say.
Yep. Well, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in to the Stingray Show today. And once again, I do apologize for all the technical issues. We are going to get all that worked out with video and everything. But once again, we want to thank you for joining the Stingray Show, and we will be back here on Friday. Is that correct?
Good Lord willing, we'll see you Friday.
All right. See y'all then.
Nice hat, Steven.